Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Matteo Forgione on the line, and he's president and founder of Forgione Engineering. Matteo, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
All right, Matteo. So you are one of the more dynamic entrepreneurs I've brought on in a long time. So just to tee this up for everybody. So Matteo, we're going to get into Forgione Engineering. We're going to talk about space, defense, how you're really bringing a mission-based approach to those industries, which pun intended on the tagline, right? Give us a little credit here, mission-based. Right. But also, I mean, you're just dynamic. Everything from we'll talk about the skate park, we'll talk about the farm. I mean, you got a lot going on. But just to start us off, we'll start this show the way we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So Matteo, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. So that's our mission. Matteo, what mission matters to you?
So for me, the mission that matters to me personally is really supporting the missions of my clients and my customers, my colleagues, right? I want to see them be successful, and that drives me. So I get questions and inquiries and people coming to me looking for solutions, right? And I see that mission and I'm like, I want in on this, right? I want to do this. Let's do this, right? I don't even care what it is. People bring the craziest stuff to me. And I'm like, let's do this. And then other people are looking at me, they're like, you're crazy. They're like, what are you doing getting involved with that? I'm like, it's a great project, So yeah, that's what it is. It's problem solving, right? I love to problem solve. That's my thing. Everything I do. I'm a tinkerer. I'm an engineer, I'm an innovator. I'm a businessman. I just like to problem solve and I like that process, right? So
yeah, it's great. Love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs on the line to really share why they do what they do. And I mean, and as we go through this interview, the audience will get a feel for the types of problems you like to solve. Sure. But let's just start from the beginning. I mean, like, how did you get on this path of really innovating and solving problems in the space and defense field? Like how'd you get on that path?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, most of these things that really there's opportunities and points in time, right, where these there's these cross points where you have these abilities to take these opportunities, right? And most of these things just happen by mistake, So, for example, like in the defense side of the house, right? We were doing a little bit with subsea sonar and things like that, and we'd make some pieces and parts or get involved helping to support someone. And we get a lot of emergency jobs, right? So people who are were let down by other vendors or other suppliers, and they come to us and they're like, basically on their knees, like, please, can you help me? Like, I heard that you can just get this done. And like, okay, we'll just deal with it. Right. So we were doing a little bit in defense, a little bit in space. We did some things where we made some, helped build some space telescopes that were launched, and a lot of components for that. But it's really hard to break into space and defense, right? Because there's already a lot of companies in those businesses. They're usually very large businesses, and we're a small business. So, it's hard. There's a barrier to entry, right? So we actually ended up almost in some cases, it's just by mistake. You find one little project and, because of the nature of many of our projects, usually if they're successful, we end up kind of getting to pull out that hero card,
Yeah.
And play that, and then it gets us in the door. So many of them have come from very, very small projects that were huge wins that have either, resolved a major issue for the client, and they're like, they appreciate it so much, and then they start to see the value, And typically for me, it's about just getting in the door, because once you let me in and I start talking, then you're like, okay, I see what you're doing. Let's work together, But getting in the door is the hardest part.
So I love my space entrepreneurs. I don't even know if that's a term, but I always call them that. So I interview certain individuals they're small business owners or business owners like yourself that are working in these fields. And I'm like, man, to be competing against these other big companies or the barrier entry. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, it's tricky, but what kind of advice would you give to that next group or that group of entrepreneurs out there that they're really interested in space, they're interested in entrepreneurship, and they're maybe thinking about that path of trying to go down that line? Like, from your experience, what kind of things would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing with any business, especially in these businesses, where if you do not perform, you are going to probably contribute to someone else's failure. That is you need to be customer centric, right? It's like everything is about the customer and the client and their results, right? I'm not going into the project thinking like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to make a ton of money, or I'm doing this because I want to be successful. I'm going into it thinking like, I'm doing this because I need to make sure that they can launch the rocket in February. I'm doing this because they need to get the program back online. I'm doing this because of that. So it's really about being focused on the customer. And the only thing that lets them know that you're focused on them is by actually showing them that you care, and you can't tell people you care. I could tell you all day long, I care about what you're doing, but no one's going to believe you. You have to show them, right? Yeah. When they show up, you meet them and you greet them. When they call, you answer the phone or you call them back. You have to make time. And that's the part. It's like it is a huge time commitment. You will spend, if you really do a good job, you're going to spend 20-hour days for 10 years, and then, the instant success comes after 10 years of hard work, so, and that's basically that all it comes down to is blood, sweat, and tears, so you have to work hard. You have to be committed. So
the overnight success that took 10 years. I get it. It's the same story over and over. You don't see the rest. You just see the article at the end of it, right?
That's it. Yep. Yeah. Just the summary.
So let's go further into Forgione Engineering. So we know the kind of the sectors that you're working in. So tell us a little bit more about the company.
Yeah. So my business is really unique in that we're a small company, but we have a lot of resources that bigger companies have, right? So we have the agility and to be like extremely flexible and take on projects in almost any industry. And so like within our office here and in our shop, right, we have the ability to design and build projects from scratch 100% in many different industries. And then so we have our internal resources. We have, machining, water jet cutting, laser. We can do all our own laser marking. 5 3D printers. We have a full quality inspection lab, right? All these things that like many companies that I work with, maybe one of them might have some of that stuff and another one might have some of that. We have a lot of resources under one roof, and then a lot of software and a lot of brain power, right? So we're pretty dangerous when it comes to what we can just do on a split second. So when people come in and they're like, I need help with this. It's like, okay, no problem. Just explain it to us. We'll figure it out. And then we look at what we can do internally, and then what we can use. What I call my strategic partners, right? So I have these other companies I've been working with for years and years and years that we build these relationships. So whether it's with the customer or clients, colleagues, other consultants or fabricators in shops that are going to make hardware or do other processes, we build those relationships. So I can text or call someone at midnight and say, hey, you know what, my laser went down. Can I come in tomorrow morning at 7 and bring this to you and have your guy mark this for me because I need it down in Florida tomorrow on the next morning. It's got to go. And they're like, yeah, no worries, bring it by. So when you're just a number or a customer that is just rogue and you're like emailing around for quotes, things like that, you don't get treated like that, right? So we build those relationships. They're two-way relationships. So those companies can lean on us too. And it makes it so that we're able to accelerate and really crunch things together because it's like going to a friend or a family member, right? We kind of always say like, we're keeping it in the family, Like I talked to one of my friends the other day who owns a big flame cutting house. And I said, hey, do you think you can grind these parts? I need to make a chuck for you to hold them. But I was like, I could send it somewhere else, but I'd rather keep it in the family, because
for sure,
my guy, right? So that's basically how we do it. It's a softer version of a harder thing, right? It's kind of pulling out those barriers, which are it's tricky. It's a different approach at the business,
Well, to me, it actually sounds like how business was once upon a time done, like in my opinion, like in a community. If you think at the very smaller level, right? Like in a community, when we lived in communities, it was a little bit different. Like there was this person had this resource, this person had this resource, and the strength of all of us together made us stronger. So it sounds like you've been able to apply that to your business and create this, this great community and or your team, strategic partners, that's the word you used, your strategic partners,
Exactly.
to make sure that, like, to me, it also sounds like on the other side that the customer is probably pretty surprised at what you can get done and what you can get accomplished sometimes. Like they're expecting it to be this, and that, and then they're like, wait a minute, you can do this, and by when? Like, tell me a little bit more about the other side, like the customer experience, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the customer experience is just like that. They're like blown away.
Yeah.
They don't even understand sometimes, because especially with we some of our customers are 20, $30 billion, companies, right? So huge, mega companies, very, very high bureaucracy. Everything is structured. You can't do anything unless it's tasked to a specific project or a program, right?
Yeah.
And so they struggle where they're trying to do their job, and then they come to us and ask for something. And so for example, like I had there's a little project I was doing for one of my clients. I had been so busy the last few weeks that I kind of had been blowing it off, right? And it was very small, but it was something that I needed to figure out in my head. For me, like as a designer and an engineer, usually if I'm not jumping on it and doing the design, I haven't had that aha moment in my head.
Yeah.
Like, I don't just sit there and make models on my computer and be like, oh, I kind of finally figured it out. I figured it out in my head, and then I just put it down on paper.
Yeah.
Put it down.
It's like a musician, right? Like inspiration. Like
I just have that inspiration.
Comes to you, you can see the color, it's done, and you're like, okay.
That's it.
And then like magic, it's done.
I see the whole thing. So I got the phone call, and and it's not like they're mad, but they're like, hey, what's up with this clip? And I'm straight up. I haven't even gotten to it. And he's like, well, thanks for the honest answer. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, I just haven't done it, And that's the thing, is like the honesty and that being able to just talk back and forth and have a conversation, check in with each other. What's up with this?
I'm sure they appreciated it, like genuinely. They're like,
yeah, I'm just like, I'm blowing you off. Literally, I'm telling you. And I'm like, so it was like the second time I told him I had blown him off, and I was like, you know what? I got off the phone and I was like, I know how to do it. I had the moment right then, and I did the design because I had done a couple iterations before, and I wasn't happy with it. I had printed the parts and I just was like, throw them in the trash. So I did the design, sent it to the printer, and I called him a couple hours later. I was like, hey, just swing by the office, you can pick it up. It's done. And he's like, what? And I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, I figured it out right after I got off the phone with you. I was like, I felt bad. You guilted me into doing it. I was like, it's all set. Just swing by and grab it. And they picked it up, and they were like, this is perfect. Great. Well, we'll take it back and we'll try it. So, and that's the thing, the customer experience. I want them to feel, again, like I said, they have to feel like you care, everyone knows that feeling when you call a service provider or something.
For sure.
You're just like, these people literally do not care about me at all. Yeah. Right. It's terrible. It really is a bummer. And when you have something that is really mission critical and you have that feeling like you cannot get support and no one cares about what you're doing, it can be stressful. Right. So we're trying to reduce that level of stress and pressure by taking on some of that burden, and just saying, yeah, you know what, just tell me what you want, when you need it, we'll figure it out, we'll deal with it. And of course, a lot of times I'm taking on that burden, right? We're taking on that. And someone's like, hey, you're gonna be home for dinner, and I'm like, no, not really. I'll be home at 3 a.m. because I need to wrap this up for someone. But it is what it is. But we'll do it, So.
Yeah, no, and I get that about you, and I get that about your group, and understanding the community side of things too, and team you put together. I think it's awesome. Yeah. I want to switch it up a bit. So you have some other entrepreneurial, some other businesses, other things that you're involved in. I mean, Amalgamated Titanium International Corp. I mean, you got quite a Maple Leaf Farm. Where do you want to start? Because you have, just as an entrepreneur, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can brush up on all of them and just kind of go in order, I guess. So, I've always been an entrepreneur. When I was a little kid, I lived next to a golf course, and I used to go out with one of my friends, and we'd pick up all the old golf balls and we'd clean them and sell them to the golfers, And I had a paper route when I was 8 years old. I delivered papers and spent all my money on ice cream and Legos, and so I bought all my own Legos when I was a kid, and Legos were a big part of probably my engineering, mind, my father.
Who would have thought when your parents or whoever, like they're seeing you with the Legos and you're playing and you're like, I didn't know he was going to grow up to be an engineer. I just thought he liked Legos.
Yeah. And honestly, with the engineering part of it, I wasn't even that serious about going to college and being an engineer. My physics teacher in high school, because I was so good in physics, he basically just told me flat out, he's like, you just need to be a mechanical engineer. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll just take your word for it. And I did it. Like literally, that is what caused me to be a mechanical engineer. I was like, I guess I'll take your word for it.
Wow.
And I did that because I honestly was just going to go to California and go skateboarding. So when I graduated high school, that was pretty much the plan. Because I was skateboarding. I was traveling since I was 15 years old, skateboarding all summer. I was gone teaching and all that stuff. And then with sponsors and things like that. So, and I started little skateboard companies. I had a skateboard wheel company. I was a partner, in another skateboard company. So then, fast forward, right? You get into engineering, and I basically, I just have a knack for that process of starting businesses and just taking ideas and being like, okay, this is how we can do that, right? So I got roped into a long search by the CEO of Amalgamated. He'd gone through, over 20 engineers looking for someone that just kind of got it. He was like, he would explain what he was doing, and everyone would just give blank stares, right? And I was like, yeah, I get it. So this is what you want to do, and you want to do that, and all right, okay, no problem. And he's like, okay, and so we kind of partnered up, and we ended up. I started doing some work with them, and we did a lot of interesting work. We still have ongoing projects, but in fishing and small arms, like specialty stuff, like military special ops, small armaments, like full titanium weapon systems and things like that. Design, build the whole thing, like tested at Quantico with the Marines and all that stuff. So really cool stuff.
That is cool stuff.
Yep. So. And then, I have another business, Forgione USA, which is basically like the manufacturing, sales, distribution arm of Forgione Engineering. So as an engineering firm, my main business, we have a specific scope that's covered in like legally with insurance and things like that.
Yeah.
Right? When you're a business, right, you need to know what you do because you need to mitigate risk in a lot of cases, right? Especially with engineering, we do a lot of things that have a relatively high level of risk. I'm a licensed professional engineer. People ask me to design or stamp or certify things because no one else maybe will, or they need it for some specific purpose in order to get permission to do something, right? So I have this other business. So if we do projects where we're literally just like buying and selling product or things like that, we have multiple businesses, right? So I bought a historic farmhouse, and I live on a farm. So I was like, well, I'll just start a farm business, right? So, and it's not like you're going to make any money farming, right?
But it's cool. Maple Leaf Farm. Come on. It's awesome.
Best case scenario, you're going to make about a quarter of minimum wage if you did actually to calculate it out. But for me, I love the kind of agricultural lifestyle. I have chickens, I have ducks, I have 2 horses.
That's
farm
cool.
dog, a big field. I'm out there in the 1953, Ford tractor mowing the field and just, just loving it. So I enjoy that. That's the weekend warrior farmer thing. My friend calls me an amateur farmer, so I'm not pro, I'm amateur, so I have plenty going on, and the thing is, like when you're juggling a lot of balls, or like we say, like spinning plates, right? You got all these plates and you're spinning. Got to know right when to hit them to keep them all going, right?
For sure.
And it's important to, I know it's a problem for me. I take on too much all the time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like I won't even argue with it. Someone says you take on too much, I'm like, you're right. I'm crazy. It's ridiculous, but I enjoy doing it. And it's every once in a while, I just kind of sit back, right? And I look at it and I say, is there anything I'm doing that doesn't make sense? Should I not be doing this? And sometimes I shift gears, so I do have the ability to really take a high level view at it and decide, is this good for my life? Is it good for, my business? Is it good for, my wife or my kids and things like that? Right. Cause I do have a family and, and I have other obligations. Right. But sometimes, you make those decisions. It takes a little while to execute. You can't say like, well, tomorrow I'm just going to shut this thing down. Like, it's not so simple, right? It's like deciding to do a 180 in a battleship sometimes, right? It's like, okay, let's slow it down. We're going to start to turn, right? It's a process. So, it's not that simple, right? So,
And what I think is interesting, well, first off, as we sit here and talk from a very self-interested way, I'm like, man, this is a guy that I need to find some problems to give to because he gets things done. You want to get something done? I'm sitting here thinking like, what can I give him to do? Come on, I'm in. This is a guy gets stuff done. What can I put at his plate to add some more? Because you want to get something done, give it to somebody that's busy. But even with all of your obligations, businesses, obviously your primary business, Forgione Engineering, and taking care of your clients, even with all of that family, you still find time to give back in a couple of different ways that you teach, you work with an accelerator, you even teach skating. I mean, so multiple different facets. Tell me a little bit more about like how you give back and why that's important.
Yeah. I mean, I love to teach. I like, as soon as someone asks me a question, I just start talking. I'll just go and I'll have to be like, I'm sorry if this is too much, but I guess I just love to just explain things. And I think one of my gifts is the ability to explain and answer things, and even if I don't know, I'll talk about it out loud. I'll be like, okay, so what are we talking about? Right. And go through it. And, because I might be like, I don't really know, but like, what is it? What are we looking at? Right. And I'll talk through it and be like, okay, I got some idea. Maybe we'll look into it more. So I love to teach. And so I started teaching at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, where I went to school. And so I'm a visiting teaching professor there. I teach a thermal fluids laboratory. So basically it's heat transfer and fluid flow related labs. And so I co-teach it in the fall because we have so many students in the fall. We have like 150 to 160. And then in the spring, it's about half of that because of just the way that it fits into the senior schedules. So in the spring, I teach it on my own and I do the lecture as well. So, I teach skateboarding on Saturdays, as long as it doesn't rain in Lowell. And that's just completely free. We started with homeschool kids. And so we have a lot of kids who just don't have an opportunity. Some can't afford equipment. So, there's really not a lot of places that you can get a professional, instructor in skateboarding. And unless you go to, like, for example, like Camp Woodward or something like that in Pennsylvania or California, and there's others now. But to have that level of expertise at your disposal. And I do like a group clinic. So it's no problem. I can teach like up to 20 kids at a time in a group, bouncing around, right? And they don't even think I'm looking at it. And I'm like, hey, your foot's in the wrong place. Keep doing that. Nope, do that. Boom, boom, boom. Like,
I'd be like, how did he see me? How did he see me?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I've been skateboarding for 26 years. So it's been a long time. And I taught professionally and I skated professionally. And I love that. And it also gives me an excuse to go to the skate park, because if I just say, hey, I'm going to go skateboarding, it might be a little bit of a problem. If I say I'm going to go teach kids how to skateboard, no problem. Right. So
work that right in there.
Yeah,
Guys.
exactly.
You're a politician too. Got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then E for All, which is a entrepreneurship for all. It's a new business accelerator. There's one in Lowell. There's multiples in Massachusetts, one in New Hampshire. And that's basically an accelerator where people who want to start a new business can apply. They kind of do a pitch contest. And if they get in, they get paired up with some mentors and a coach. And we basically, in like 13 weeks, like, they can come in and not know anything about anything to do with business. They'd be like, I just want to make a better, widget. And if they get in because they are able to pitch it and get in there, in 13 weeks, they have a full business up and running. I mean, we go through, they get put through the ringer. So it's very fast. Really cool. Several of the companies that I was a mentor for are very successful. They do very cool stuff. And not high tech stuff. We're talking like, makeup artistry,
really,
cosmetics, gift, online, like gifting, things like that, compost, all sorts of cool stuff. So, and it's great. And like, for me, I don't look at it and say, oh, I'm an engineer, so I just need to do engineering related stuff. I'm like, let's figure out how to make your compost company work, you do makeup artistry. How do we scale that? Or let's start your own brand of cosmetics. Let's start your own brand of skincare, right? What's the low hanging fruit? How do we do this? How do you sell it to customers, right? All these like business and marketing type activities, right? So,
yeah. And I don't think anybody would put you in that has to be engineering box, considering, professional skater, teaching kids how to skate, Maple Leaf Farm. I mean, you
Yeah.
name all these projects you've done. I didn't, as I got to know you better and as we get to know each other better and I see your background and what you're doing, I'm like, man, what's next?
Yeah.
So the accelerator specifically, and I just want to ask just on your end, like how important is mentorship and having those other people in your life that maybe had been a little bit further along than you were at the time? Like how important has that been to you, and why do you think it's important for others?
Yeah, it's definitely important. I've found people over time who have been able to be sounding boards for me, or
Yeah.
that I can just kind of very candidly just say, like, here's what I have going on. What do you think? You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't need them to answer. What I found, like when I worked in the deep foundation business, I used to call, I'd be out in the field. We were putting in a foundation for a bridge or a high rise or something like that. And we'd run into some really nasty problems.
Yeah.
Like beyond what you can imagine, right? So we're out there, and I remember I'd call, Jim, the owner, and I'd be like, hey, I got a problem. And I'd just start talking. I'd be like, here's what's going on. Bum, 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 bum. And about 15 minutes later, I'm still rambling. And I'd be like, okay, I figured it out. I'm good. I'll talk to you later. Click, and he's just like, okay, because sometimes you just need to be able to talk through it out loud, right? And just go through it. But then sometimes you need someone who can say, hey, you know what? I see what you're doing here. I don't know if that really makes sense, or this is a good idea that works. And sometimes you need some real, some real help with some advice. And I just surround myself with people who are better than me. Like that's what I did when I was skateboarding all the time. You don't go out and learn how to skate from the kid down the street who just started. You go and skate with the best guy in the world.
Yeah.
And you try to learn what they do and see what they do, see how they behave, what they do, right? So, so you don't need necessarily like an official mentor, but you need to surround yourself with great people who are better than you. You don't, if you want to be the best person in the room, you really need to step back and think about the ego situation, right? You really need to be like, okay, I need to surround myself with greatness so I can learn how to be better, and then try to give that back as well, So, I talked to the university a couple of years ago, and I'll be doing this next month. I'm setting up an endowed scholarship for the mechanical engineering students.
Awesome.
Because, for me as someone who, I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, you know what I mean? Like, it was a challenge to be able to go to the university and go do those things, right? So if I can give back and someone can get a new computer or buy some books or things like that, it's a big deal. Some people don't realize that. That's a huge deal for someone. So.
Yeah, it is a big deal. It definitely is a big deal, and it's appreciated. Like the kids, and you never know, like because you see things, but you don't really always know what's on the other side of it. So like taking that extra step and really just being blessed and being a blessing. I mean, it's a big deal. So definitely commend you on doing that and doing those extra things, and totally agree with you, by the way, on the mentorship side and like what it looks like and how to help. Like it's one of those things that as I get it personally just further along in life, I see how important people were in my life mentoring. And I see also that, even if you don't have everything figured out, like you have something to offer in terms of other people in mentorship. And when people ask you questions, sometimes just being that ear, like you just said, is so important. And you never know, like it can make a huge difference. And then years down the line, they come back and they tell you, how much you helped them and how much you meant in their life. And maybe I'm just getting at that age in my life. And I'm like, what? I don't remember like doing that much. I just listened. I said a thing or two here, but you don't know how what you say is going to be perceived. And you also don't know the effect. You don't know.
For sure. And I learned that when I was younger, when I was teaching skateboarding, especially with young kids, because they're very impressionable and they remember everything, and you have these preteens. And I always made sure that I spoke positively and had a good attitude and tried to encourage them to, to move forward and be the best that they could, because they're impressionable, and so it's just important to try to be supportive of everyone and kind of meet everyone where they're at. And that's the same thing with customers too. You need to meet them where they are, not where, so one of the common problems with sales is that, okay, I have this product line or this stuff that I sell. I'm just going to try to sell you that rather than going to the customer saying, what do you need? And then if you don't have that, don't try to sell them something because they know that that's inappropriate, right? So, it's about honesty and respect, really, down to it, So, in the end, with everything, so.
So Matteo, I know you got a lot going on. I have to just ask, so what's next? What's next for you? Forgione Engineering, the other businesses, like what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I basically, it's one day at a time, we have a lot of great clients, world-class customers, outstanding projects. We're supporting a lot of new space related activities, a lot of real high-end aerospace defense activities, commercial consumer product. We have a lot of our own products as well, inspection equipment, things like that. And so we're getting into a little bit more in some of the, like, I'm actually starting a new business with someone that kind of piggybacks with some of the things we're doing to do with cybersecurity compliance, right? Because a lot of businesses now, the government's basically applying more pressure to comply with certain regulations in order to make sure that there's cybersecurity in place within your businesses. So, so over the last 2 years, that's been getting hot, and we have a kind of a new venture we're starting up to help smaller companies, especially these small and medium enterprises. The big companies can do it themselves, no problem. Mega corporations, but the small and medium enterprises have an issue doing it. So we have expertise in that between the IT side with my partner and the functional side of it. How does it look from when you're implementing it realistically, practically, right? And taking those and then being able to present that in a very functional way that's just results based, right? So that, and then just more involvement with the university, tying in some of my outside projects with potentially with academic projects and research and things like that, and plenty more with some of the other businesses. It's just all fun stuff. It's all problem solving to me. It's all one big project, and I'll just keep doing it. So
I know. And something told me when I asked you that question in the back of my head, I was thinking, watch him say he's launching another business. Watch him say he's launching. And there he goes. You did not disappoint. Our conversations, you never disappoint. This has been great. Well, if somebody's watching this and they do want to learn more about Forgione Engineering or any of your other projects, just to connect and to follow your journey, what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, so if they want to connect with me personally, my LinkedIn profile, you can just go on LinkedIn and just search my name. So Matteo Forgione. For the business, ForgioneEngineering.com. I also post some cool pictures of things that I can post pictures of on Instagram. So so the tag is Forgione Engineering on Instagram. And that's pretty much it. But if you Google my name, you can find some way to contact me, and and I'll respond and talk to you. Any questions you have, I'm open to anything. And I give even on LinkedIn, I have it up there as people can ask me for career advice or just questions about whatever, and I always answer that stuff. So so anything,
wonderful,
in a good conversation. So.
Well, hey, Matteo, just got to say, really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your background and all the great work that you're doing and how you're also giving back. I mean, bringing really a mission-based approach to space defense and many other industries. So great stuff there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time with us, this is the type of content we put out. So we're looking at business owners, entrepreneurs, experts that are mission-based, that have something to give back. Definitely hit that subscribe button. We definitely have more entrepreneurs coming up for you that we'll be showcasing, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Matteo, thanks again for coming on. It really has been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Adam. Have a great day.